Taking a look then here on the Route 1 show at all things non-league in our region. Did I say joining us as always is Lewis Sale. Thanks for joining us, mate.
No worries, guys. Hope you're well.
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. How are you?
Better, thank you. All good. All good. Now I can and actually hopefully get to watch a game of football this week after trying to see some of the game during the thick fog at Kidderminster. So hopefully we can actually watch a game properly this week.
Yeah, I was going to start with obviously the Kidderminster game, and as you say, the weather wasn't the best, but a 1-1 draw on the road at Agra seems like a decent point. I mean, where did you want the fog at any point? Were you wanting it to roll in to get it called off, or were you quite keen for it to stay away to take the point?
When we were 1-0, we wanted it to carry on. Is it regardless of the weather, let's carry the game on. And I think some people back in West Yorkshire probably saw the same amount of football as we did down there. If I'm being completely honest, didn't really see our goal, didn't really see their goal, so it was pretty bad. But it was, you know what, I think from what we could see, the first half, I think we gave a good account of ourselves. We matched them. We looked a little bit of a threat. Don't get me wrong, they had a few chances, but nothing that really troubled Sites Kenworthy. But we did catch Kiddie on the counter attack, and like I say, towards that far corner from where the away fans usually sit at Kidderminster, it was thick fog, and we kind of just heard the ball hit the net and then realised it was a goal, and this play started running off. So we thought, we scored a goal, so we started celebrating. And then, like I say, I think Kidderminster looked reasonably tidy, but I think we managed it and caught with the conditions and the way the game was going out reasonably well. And I think, like I say, Kidderminster obviously had to throw a little bit more at it in the second half. And when you watch back on the highlights, it was a great finish. It was just really unfortunate with the way the ball bounced, and for us, we just didn't really clear the ball properly. Take 1-1. A lot of us did say we'll take 1-1 on the road. I did say last week I'd take a draw. I think I did call it 1-1 if I were honest. But it's not an easy place to go with Kidderminster. I know they're not in the greatest form, but they still had signs where that they can hurt teams. I think speaking to a lot of Kidderminster fans, that before game and after game, I think they're just really wanting a natural goal scorer. I mean, aren't we all? They can create chances. They do. They are well known for playing some really good possession-based football. But I think on a balance of play, draw were probably a fair result. And like I said, I mean, even for the last 5-10 minutes, we were sort of at the back of the away section, and we had literally came all the way down to the front, as close as you could do to the game, and we were struggling to see beyond the halfway line. So, in some respects, it was good to just get the game over and done with. I think both sets of teams and players probably just wanted it to be finished as far as it went. But I think, if I'm being honest, I think if the weather had been that bad come kick-off, it could have it wouldn't have surprised me if it had been abandoned.
Yeah, it would not have been ideal. Well, I guess Kidderminster being renowned for one thing. I mean, maybe you've got a more certain answer on this. Was the food any good at Agra? Because they always used to be brilliant. Although I do know that they were renowned for the pies, weren't they? And I say pies, it was basically a meal in a tin. It was amazing. But I know the chap that created all that and did a lot of that passed away, I think, a couple of years ago. Is the food still any good down there, or has it changed?
I'm really bad for saying this.
Oh, wait, you didn't try it, did you?
I had a Bovril and a Twix, other confectionery I had available, but yeah, that's all I had. Yeah, didn't try the pie, unfortunately. But to be fair, I think stopping off at the services and trying to grab something when we, obviously with the conditions as they were travelling down the pitch, and obviously they said we were very confident going ahead, but the further we went further down south, it started to be foggy, and you start thinking we've come all this way to have a game postponed. So made most of it at the services. So yeah, unfortunately didn't taste Kiddie's pies.
So I'm still just slightly baffled at how this works. Bovril and a Twix, beef and chocolate. I mean, I don't know. It's a strange combination.
It's an absolute dream.
I'm going to try that now. That's what I'm having for tea tonight now.
Yeah, I wouldn't be dunking the Twix in the Bovril. I mean, I didn't go that far, but
that's not bad.
it did its purpose. And to be fair, I think like I say, if I'd have got a pie, I probably wouldn't have seen it anyway. So
Onwards then for Avenue. Chorley at home on Saturday, and then a rather lengthy away trip on Tuesday night for you. Whilst everybody else will be sat around their tellies or tuning to YouTube on deadline day, you'll be on your way to King's Lynn, and back.
yeah,
Deep in darkest Norfolk, I think.
I think there's plenty worse to describe me that I can't possibly repeat on this. If that's the case, not going down Tuesday. But yes, starting Saturday, it's a big game. We don't have a bad record against Chorley at home. But they're flying at the moment, 7th or 8th in the division, doing really well. I think, don't get me wrong, probably a bit of an indifferent start to the season, but yeah, many of us that will listen to this and know Chorley, you know exactly what you're going to get. You're going to get a good footballer team, really stubborn, really strong, physical, and do the basics as probably as well as anybody in this division. From our perspective, we're talking about this on the way back from Kidderminster, saying, there's two sides to it really. Over the December period, we've played teams in and around us. We haven't beaten them teams. So we haven't gained ground on them, but we haven't lost ground because we've just, we've drawn the 2 games against Farsley, drew the game against Ketcher in the last minute, despite them being out of 10 men and the keeper sent off. In Kidderminster as well, obviously, don't get me wrong, I don't think they'll be down towards the bottom 4, but, they're not flying highs, with the likes of Chorley. So those games, without being disrespectful to Chorley, because they are a really good team, got a lot of respect from. You are looking at some fixtures. Take Farsley, for instance, beating Kings Lynn the other week at home. You're going to need the odd result, a good win against a good team at home to make sure that you're going to survive in this division. And I think, Mark and the lads will be looking at Saturday and possibly pinpointing one of those games is that occasion. Kings Lynn on a Tuesday. Yeah, I'm absolutely mad for going down on a Tuesday. I think we can almost write Wednesday off.
Do you fancy doing you could do a live match review? We're hoping to go live on deadline day. You could come and join us and we could,
really?
get a live match review from you, Lewis.
Can do. If that's the case, I need to try a pie, then fine. But yeah, I'm just to be setting off at, we are setting off early afternoon, and to be back in the early hours of Wednesday morning, I think there's plenty worse to describe me. So if that needs to be the case, I will try my best. If I'm awake and complete with it. So yeah, I think in terms of the fixture itself, right, listen, I think it's a bonus for us. For a really good team of Kings Lynn, arguably one of, if not the best team in this league. From the football and highlights I've seen of other games, they have really stepped it up from that first game. The first game of the season is always a really difficult one to read. I think we probably caught them at the right time, but again, it showed the quality that they've got to win that 1-0. Don't get me wrong, we had a couple of decisions that could have gone in our favour, 1 or 2 penalties, but we didn't. And those kind of wins are why they're a quality team. So we go there with quite low expectations from everybody outside Avenue. But we did that a few years ago when we went down midweek. Again, I was there, and now famous Tom Clare scored a winning goal. So if somebody scores a winning goal, then they might then end up on Love Island in the next few years. So that'll be interesting. But yeah, anything's a bonus, I think, going down there. But I think, like I say, we don't mind the underdog tag. I don't think. And I think the longer some of the younger lads start playing together, especially likes of David and Shane, combining from Huddersfield, who did a decent job on Saturday at Kidderminster. Got obviously the weekend fixture to play. Players returning as well, coming fit. Jamie Spencer hopefully will be back soon. Reece Staunton will be back soon as well. So, we've got players to return. 1 defeat in 8. There's plenty of positives to take from this. Yeah, we could have won a couple, but we haven't. We could have lost a few, we haven't. So we've just got to take the positives out of that and almost keep that space, that gap between us and the other teams, because midweek fixtures probably weren't in Avenue's favour in terms of results. So we've just got to keep that gap between us all.
I'm now just gutted that the great Nikki Clee still isn't in the Avenue squad, because I'd love to have got a winner and then been on Love Island.
I'll text him that and see what he says to that one. Yeah.
Do we have an estimate on how old you got to? Like, what's the oldest you can be to get on Love Island, and who's the oldest in the Avenue squad?
I mean, I'll be absolutely honest. I've never seen an episode of it, but if if there's some of our lads would score in that game at Kingsland and potentially be on Love Island, I mean, now.
So that's where Nova's gone. He hasn't gone to a job in Germany. He's on Love Island. That's where he's at.
He's going to come in the late edition.
Yeah.
I mean, if Nova went on Love Island, I will watch it. I will absolutely watch it if that's okay. And I'll tell you now, I think there'll be a lot of people tuning in, and I think the viewing figures will go through the roof if Nova ended up on there.
What we're saying here then is that ITV2 are well and truly missing a trick.
Well, if only they knew Nova, then it could happen. But I mean,
now Leeds.
I mean, I'm not usually speechless, but if Nova ended up on Love Island, that would be a moment of just no words needed. Just watch the TV in all its glory. And I mean, he'd just be hilarious, wouldn't he?
To be fair, this is now got me wondering of what would be the best / most entertaining lineup of non-league footballers you could put together for the boys section in Love Island. I think you could come up with some absolute corkers. On then, away from Love Island, thankfully. Farsley, for them, obviously they didn't have a game last Saturday, but they did pick up quite I think unexpected might be a little harsh, actually, but what is on the face of it, a good win against Buxton on Tuesday night.
I think it's a crucial win. I think it was one of those 6-point games that, you're playing teams around at the moment in the league table, and for them to beat Buxton 2-1 when I think, Buxton came into the game a little bit into the second half, but to have that 2-goal advantage in a half time's a great bonus. And Buxton are not on a good run of form at the moment either. So I think for Farsley to not only not lose but to pick up 3 points is massive. And I've said it on countless occasions. I think for me, they are one of the brightest teams on the counter attack. I think they'll look really, really strong. I've seen the highlights as well. Ironically this morning, and we had a couple of chances where we could have scored. Frank Mullern had a chance, in the first few minutes as well, when he took it around the keeper, but it just went wide. But then, the first goal, Keane Scales has run almost half a length of the pitch, 3/4 of the pitch, played it to Mullern, and he's got the football brainy experience to just pass it straight back to him. The lad's on side, and it was a great finish. So I think Russ has got a good, hard-working team there who are capable of picking up points. And again, I mentioned this on the way down to Kidderminster, that Farsley are capable of getting out that bottom four. They are a good team, they're a strong team. Looking at the starting lineup on Tuesday and the bench, it's probably the strongest they've been in a while. They are getting players back. And I think, it's making Russ Wilcox have a few headaches, positive headaches to have for him selection. And let's be honest, the dragging teams into it. Blythe won at Croft Park 1-0. That brings them back into it. Farsley win, that brings them back into it. And it almost drags a few teams into it. You're looking, let's be honest, Bradford into it. Curzon are dragged into it. Leamington are dragged into it. Buxton are well and truly in it now. And Farsley have got a run of fixtures on paper. If they pick up a few points, they could easily find themselves at that bottom four. And I think psychologically that would be great for them, because I think we've pretty much been stuck in that bottom four for the majority, if not all, the season. It's a great victory, but they've got to back this up now, because I think we've got Curzon coming up this Saturday. I think we've got Telford coming up shortly as well. So on paper they've got fixtures with teams in and around them, and if they make that count, let's be honest, where Avenue have not lost but not won. But Farsley do win, that really makes it interesting. And I think it's almost, you can almost split the division, I think, almost into three. I think there's some really good, capable teams in this division. I think you've almost got 9 or 10 teams battling it for the last 2 playoff spaces. And then I think you've almost got another league of about 7 or 8 teams that are going to fight out for that bottom four. And you look at Telford as well. Let's be honest. I know the switch managers, and Kevin Wilkins got a fantastic setup of how his teams play, very solid. They don't score a lot of goals, but they don't concede a lot of goals either. And they're picking up points as well, and they've got a lot to do, a lot to catch up. But it's achievable the way they're going at the moment, and they've got some fixtures on paper as well that they can potentially get a few wins out of. So it's going to be really, really tight. I'd see it going down, if I'm being honest, to the final day of the season. And I think when you look at that bottom, when you have 4 teams relegated, if it doesn't go down to the bottom 4, I'll be surprised, because there's going to be 1, if not maybe 2 teams that could get relegated. That many people will go and watch during the season and go, I'm surprised they've gone down, and this, that, and the other. So it's going to be a really tight finish. And I think from Bradford and Farsley's perspective, it's to make sure that they are as safe as possible, without leaving it to that last day. Because I think I can't remember who Farsley's last game against at the moment. You'll probably tell me, but I know at Avenue we've got Fylde at home. You don't want that to go to the final day, and you've got Fylde at home. So
spending more away for Farsley on the final day,
and it's never an easy place to go. So you've got to do. Don't get me wrong, hard work throughout the season, but you've really got to put the hard work in and make sure you're safe, I think, before the final day of the season, because I hate to kind of throw Guiseley into that, but you know what it's like on a final day. You just don't want that situation to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Curzon Ashton then away next for Farsley. And we'll link into Guiseley, I suppose, off the back of that. And for them, obviously, no game on Saturday, postponed due to a frozen pitch at Matlock. They did have a mid-season friendly at Thackley on Tuesday night, which they ran out 3-0 win. It's a couple of goals from Chippendale and one for Lewis Hay in that game. Just something to give Paul Phillips a chance to see 1 or 2. I know there was a couple of trialists or 2 in there, as well as a few players that have been out on the fringe, like Nat Crofts, who's had a loan spell out at Tadcaster Albion, for example. So an opportunity for him to see perhaps some players that he hasn't seen because they've been out on loan elsewhere, and also perhaps run the rule over 1 or 2 potential new arrivals.
I like that style of management. I really do like it. It really, for me, I think it's a real big plus that we're able to arrange a game like that. Don't get me wrong, got the connections, Danny Forrest, Chippy, etc. They've got that connection to Thackley, so obviously it does make sense. But I remember years ago when I was involved with Avenue at the time with John Deasy, and John was really keen to have midweek fixtures. Sometimes they'd be behind closed doors, sometimes you didn't know about until you turned up thinking you were training, and next minute you're playing a game. But it's a different way of training, and the way Guiseley are at the moment, when you're on a run of good results, bit of momentum, there's nothing like the next match day that you can replicate, and I think the friendlies, obviously it's a different situation, a different environment, but it's still a match, and regardless of what that is, it's a different intensity, a kind of different output, and like I said, Phillips can really look at a couple of trialists obviously thrown in there, but the likes of Nat Crofts, and just maybe have a look at shape, bit of formation, bit of tactics, and is there potential where somebody else can fit into the system a little bit better, and all that. You've got to account for suspensions and injuries at this point in time, because games are so quick. I think it's a really clever idea. I do rate it. I'm actually surprised a lot more clubs potentially don't do it more often. It's difficult at the moment, with the pitches probably being a lot heavier at this moment in time, but and there is a lot of games, but I think sometimes if you're on a good one like Guiseley are, like I mentioned, it's win-win, I think. And Thackley will get something out of that game as well, because obviously they've changed managers with Tom and Danny Tech in charge, so they can adjust it for themselves. So I think it's a bonus, and I think from Guiseley's perspective, it's looking positive.
So off the bat then of that win on Tuesday night in that pre-season friendly, it is Hyde United at home who go into this game top as it stands, but it's a little bit of a false position, I suppose, because they're currently top on goal difference, 47 points apiece with them and South Shields. South Shields, though, have 4 games in hand, so you would expect South Shields to at least win 1 of the 4 to go back to the top. But, a very good position for Hyde to be in. A little bit surprising as well. They're a side that maybe you might have thought playoff chasing, maybe make the playoffs, but they really are trying to be up there as a setter at the top end of the league.
Yeah, it seems to be a real contender this year. But I think, like I say, guys that can look at this fixture and have no fear, especially recent home form as well. You know, the first game we went to watch it, you know, Halifax in the FA Trophy. I know I'll go back onto it because it's the most recent I've seen, but you know, it's going to be a tough place for any team to go, and they've backed that up with, you know, good positive wins, including that win against South Shields. You know, and I think, yeah, Hyde are going to go there similar to Guiseley, with probably, you know, with a lot of confidence. But I sense there's a good vibe at the moment within camp at Guiseley. You know, like I say, he's kind of got his squad reasonably settled at the moment. Whether he, you know, adds one or two before, you know, the end of the transfer window could potentially be the case. But I think, you know, they're in a positive space at the moment, and it's going to be a real battle. You know, I think the pitch will probably be a little bit heavier, but it's, you know, it'll probably be okay to play on. In terms of, you know, it might not be as heavy as what it has been in the last week or two, but I think from guys' perspective, you know, they'll be probably looking at this and having a real intention to go and win this game, because again, it just makes people realise actually they are a proper serious team to be feared. I think if you lose, it's one that, you know, you definitely learn from, and it's how you overcome that hurdle, because, you know, they haven't had that at the moment under Paul Phillips. And they're going to have to come at some point overcome one of those difficult situations. But if you're a Guiseley fan, Guiseley player management, etc., you go in this at the moment thinking, you know what, we can get 3 points out of this and make the league realise that, you know, we're serious about going back up.
Yeah, as you say, you know, for guys that kind of been riding the crest of the wave really since Paul Phillips has come in, as you say, this is a game that would certainly have laid down a marker really for Paul Phillips and for the guys' squad and the way it's come together in recent weeks, because of just how well Hyde have done.
Yeah, I mean, you put it into words exactly what I meant to say earlier about, you know, that's what they want to do. And I think you look at South Shields, you have the 4 games in hand, you know, on teams like Hyde. So, you know, you probably expect South Shields to, like you said, at least win one. You know, heavy favourites to win the league with the quality they've signed.
Yeah.
The setup they've got. But, you know, they haven't, at the moment, I'm saying this at time of recording, that they're not flying away with the league. They're not, you know, they're not pulling away from a lot of teams. Don't get me wrong, they've got games to catch up, but I'd much rather have the points on the board and the games in hand.
Yeah.
And from guys' perspective, you are probably looking at this and going, how close can we push the likes of South Shields and the Hydes at the moment? How close can we get to being where they are? And you know, I think probably in the back of your mind, you probably, you know, people might look at the league table and going, you know, probably South Shields are going to win it. That's fine. But it's, you know, how far can you go in that playoff push? Because there's a number of teams that, you know, can be, that will probably shuffle about in terms of league positions. You know, we are about halfway through the season now. You know, and it's almost that kind of using that football analogy. We talk about a game of 2 halves. Can you have that season 2 halves? You know, beginning of that season, you know, struggling, you know, kind of not being struggling too much, but then, you know, a few defeats send you towards the bottom of the league. Obviously, a manager change, new manager comes in, tries to bring his own style of play, his own players in, you know, shuffles the team about as well, you know, with a couple of players leaving recently. So, from guys' perspective, it is, and a lot of other teams, it is how you finish the season, not how you start it.
Yeah.
You know, you do think, what if, you know, if Danny Ellis had been there and it had been up towards the top end of the table, would, you know, he probably wouldn't have gone because they're in a favourable position. But at the moment, the decision at the moment seems to be, you know, paying benefit to him. Yeah. And I think, you know, Phillips can use his experience and what he's had in the past at various clubs to say, you know, we've done this at other clubs, I've done this, and it's and he's probably got the support from the players when you do look back at a manager going, you know, he has got a good track record of getting teams in the playoffs and potential promotion. So, yeah, good place. Lots done, kind of plenty left to do with it. I think from guys, that's kind of, for me, probably the tagline they're going to use at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Turning our attention then finally to Liversedge, and well, here we go again. Another Saturday and another day without a game for Liversedge. Of course, we're supposed to be at home to Lancaster City, but shock, horror, it was postponed due to the pitch. So I'll say it's just another gameless weekend. And at this rate, the games in hand have been well and truly mounting up for Liversedge. For them, yeah, I mean, you said about how the squad and everything's in a good place for guys because, they're getting games, whether it's bringing a friendly to kind of make sure there's games to go in. Where the heck do you think the Liversedge squad will be because of this lack of games that they've had, not just in January, but obviously going back to December as well?
It's so hard to kind of comment on it really because we just don't know, do we? It's I mean, I think we'd have been really disappointed to have a game off on the weekend. I know there's a lot of other fixtures that were called off as well, and and postponed to a later date, but they just need to play games. And I think, obviously, probably guys who may have got in there ahead of, other teams potentially to play pre-season, we don't know. But it's that kind of that's probably what Liversedge need to do at some point if a game's still getting postponed. They may have done behind closed doors, we don't know. And it's also what facilities around to make the most of while the games are being postponed. 4G, 3G pitches, and what's available at the time of games being postponed, availability of players, and the list goes on. But yeah, it's almost kind of a copy and paste job from recent weeks to talk about Liversedge, and I do feel sorry for him because it's like I mentioned about Guiseley and South Shields. You'd rather have the points on the table than the games in hand. But you've just got to use his time as wise as you can do. And, when you look at the forecast and the way the weather is at the moment, you'd say they're probably likely to go ahead Saturday. But what comes into play is, like I mentioned about, games coming quite irregularly now, is if you're playing Saturday, Tuesday and you're losing, it's the last thing you want. If you're on a good run of form, it's the best thing that can happen to you. And I think at some point, there might be the odd occasion where Liversedge might have to potentially play even 3 games a week. We've known instances in non-league in the past where teams have played 3 games in a week, but when they've been on a winning run, I remember going back to Halifax Town, it kind of secured their promotion because it was so confident, winning games. The training was the match situation. It just all came together. From Liversedge perspective, that's kind of where they need to be. Don't get me wrong, obviously they're not pushing from promotion like Halifax were, but they just need momentum. They need some games, and I think what's going to be a challenge more than anything is having that match fitness. And it doesn't really apply just to Liversedge. There's a lot of other teams at the moment who are going through it, but that's why the likes of guys having that midweek game is such a bonus because you're match fit, you're ready for that next game. And I think that's where Liversedge need to get to as soon as possible because they are in a difficult position. But again, they do have games in hand, but they need to make sure them games in hand are wins, if not draws. More often than not, the 3 points are needed. So it's kind of where do you go from here? And I think the likes of Remo down there are going to be looking at this, and it's an important period for him to start this year with a win as soon as possible, and hope that comes Saturday. If not, it's got to come as soon as possible for him.
Yeah, as it stands, they are second bottom of the Northern Premier League, but they've got 6 games in hand on Nantwich, who are the side just above the bottom 4, and they are 10 points behind them. As we say, Saturday they travel to Warrington Rylands, all being well, game goes ahead. And then on Tuesday night, whilst the rest of the footballing world, the EFL, of course, we'll be dealing with deadline day. It's Gainsborough Trinity at home for them on Tuesday night. Again, fingers crossed the pitch is in a good state. Warrington away, Warrington Rylands away, and then Gainsborough at home. Not the easiest of looking games at all, given how, in particular, how well Gainsborough are doing of late, currently 4.
Yeah.
But if you can get something out of the game at Warrington on Saturday and take something hopefully into the Tuesday night game.
This sounds... They've got to. I can't put it any other way. I think they've got to get a win out of them 2 games to just kickstart the season again. The trip to Warrington Rylands is a tough game. They've got some really, really good quality players in there at Rylands, and I know obviously they had the Warrington derby the other week, and that they've now really lost that. But Rylands are a good team, and they've got a good way of playing that should probably see them to be safe, which is I think a good achievement for them. But I mean, we're saying 6 games in hand. I mean, 6 games, you're potentially talking a maximum of 18 points. I mean, that's a lot. And you look at the points return at the moment, and I'm not saying they're going to get 18 points, but if you can return potentially about 10 points, that really, really puts you in a super position to get out of the situation you're in. But them 6 games in hand will quickly diminish to your 3 games in hand, your 2 games in hand. Before you know it, that 1 game in hand, and if you've not got any good results out of that, that's when I think psychologically will really hit Liversedge if they don't pick anything out of them 6 games. So listen, it's a tough couple of fixtures, but they've got to pick a winner out of them. And like I say, Gainsbury been on a great run up in 4th, recruited really well. Many local watchers of this will, remember, Clayton Donaldson playing up front, the target man. And it's that kind of experience where clubs are drawing on to get them out of a situation whether they're not match fit, they've been postponed, or where you are in the league. And Liversedge need that in the moment. And Liversedge have got the quality. I mentioned this in countless weeks. They've got the quality to do it, but it's not about can they do it. They need to do it, I think, now.
Yeah, absolutely. They've got a busy February as well. I've just checked, and 7 games for them in February. So, crucial for Liversedge to start picking up some points as well. Of course, hopefully they can do it on Saturday at Warrington Rowlands and Tuesday at home to Gainsborough. Thanks for joining us, Lewis. As always, mate, we will speak to you next week, and all the best for having you and for your long trip to Kingsley on Tuesday night.
Will do, guys. Have a good one.